past 6 p.m. and I'd like to start the meeting of the Audit Committee. My name is Councillor Massey and I am the Chair. I'd like to remind everyone present the meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded onto the Council's website. Item 1, apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies?
Just Councillor Johnson.
Thank you. Item 2, the minutes. I trust everyone's had a chance to have a look at them. It was the meeting held on the 24th of June 2025. I move that the minutes be approved as a correct record. Yes.
Councillor Arnold.
Sorry. Val got him first.
Oh, sorry.
Can we just say, because I did send you mine and Councillor Worrell's apologies for that meeting, but I didn't see them in the minutes. Please. Thank you.
Councillor Raper.
Sorry. Thank you. In the minutes, Councillor Arnold queried if internal audit carry out a review check that there has been improvements of the processes. Do we have a time scale for that, basically? Or is the response to Councillor Arnold's question? Sorry, you're probably going to answer that yourself.
Could I just ask what page that's on?
Page 9 of the minutes.
Oh yes, so in terms of if there are any improvements in the process, so I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, these were a reference to recommendations. Yes, so we would, for every target date, we would check them. And if they haven't been, if the processes haven't been improved at the target date for each of those reports have, then we would report them to the Audit Committee.
I think we did discuss like what was an acceptable timescale on it and some kind of list to understand whether the actions had been taken place and signed off and completed. So I don't think that's a full, it really portrays that in the minutes.
Yeah, no, we did discuss it on the evening, didn't we? Around timescales. Could we look to have that Wednesday?
Just get the chair.
Could we have a look at that and review the minutes? Any other comments on the accuracy of the minutes? Yep.
Maybe more for you, Chair. It was the first sentence at the top of page 11. The Chair noted that Thames Freeport don't accept the audit's findings and queried if members were happy with that. I don't remember them not being happy with the findings. I thought the officers were happy with the findings. Or are we talking about the Freeport themselves, the management? I was a little bit confused and was just wondering if you could clarify for me.
Yeah, it was the Freeport didn't agree with some of the audit's findings, and that's why I said that on the night. And I just asked if we were happy to accept that. But there was enough evidence there that I feel that was the right thing to do. Any other comments on the minutes? I move that the minutes be adopted as a true record. Can someone second that, please? And everyone in agreement? Yep.
Right.
Into contrary? No. Those minutes are accepted. Thank you. Item 3, I'm not agreed to any items of urgent business. Item 4, declarations of interest. Does anyone wish to declare a declaration of interest? Thank you. Item 5, I'm going to ask the committee members if we can defer this to a future meeting, or potentially the one in August.
Agreed.
Agreed? Any to contrary? That item will be deferred and held at a future meeting. Thank you, members. Item 6, risk management update. Please ask Santinda Chairs to present this item, please.
Thank you, Chair. So that's page 19 of the hard pack, or 21 if you're on your laptops. Oh, sorry, no, that's the internal audit update. If it's okay, Chair, I might give the overall internal audit update, if that's okay, as well. if it's okay, I'll give the overall internal audit update as well. Just to come back from the committee, so page 19 for everybody. So the committee requested last month that we just add a little bit more in terms of all the audits that are going on during the year. And so what we've done is there's a second page to that, which has every audit that's gone on this year, the status of that audit, and the rating, and the number of red recommendations. I just wanted to confirm that, so we've brought that back. And then I will move to risk management update, which will be on.
Taking questions as we go along.
Of course.
Councillor Raper.
Thank you. I was just looking at the internal audit update on page 19, and where you've got them RAG rated, there's a lot that are low that have been raised, a lot of issues. I'm just wondering, are there some low priority ones that could be cleared very quickly, or is it, you know, have you worked out the best system?
Can
It's
I?
fine. No, it's fine.
Carry on, please. Thank you.
So if I could ask everybody to go to the risk management update, which is on page 41. Yeah, thank you. So just a very quick update to let you know the JCAD system, the system I appreciate you've heard about for quite a while, is now live. And on the right hand side, we've just provided a very quick snapshot table to let you know those are all of the risks in relation to your corporate risk register and your directorate risk registers across each directorate. So you have a total of 318 risks. This is just a snapshot, but the key point to note here is this is your first iteration. Happy for members to let me know how they want the information provided, but just want to flag that there will be changes continually to this as the registers improve in the divisional risk registers. The corporate risk register will come to every quarterly meeting, so it will come to the next meeting it will come to will be your October meeting and not the August one. But there have not been any changes to that corporate risk register since your last viewing of it. However, if you would like it to come to the August one, just to note, that's absolutely fine as well. And yeah, just any feedback in terms of what other information you'd like to see. But to note that where the risks are reviewed in a detail level, that's normally done by the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, with your view more on the corporate risk register risks. Happy to take any questions on that.
Thank you very much for that. Members have any questions on the risk management update? I think quarterly is fine for this, unless I don't think we need to see it in 3 weeks or so. So I think the October meeting would be a good place for it to come back. Yeah, and as well, with all the risks sort of ownership all in place now, is that in place with backup plans as well?
That's correct. So every risk has an owner. Every risk doesn't currently have a target date for the action plans associated with that risk. However, those are being worked on to ensure that we have 100% of that as opposed to 90-ish%, which is where we're at.
Councillor Arnold.
Sorry, yeah, I quite like the way it's set out on page 19 compared to page 41, in that we may not have the nuances behind what all of those identified risks are, but knowing whether they're still open or closed would be quite nice, I think.
I'm happy to, so all 318 risks on that we provide are open. The difference is they wouldn't be expected to be closed, so you wouldn't expect it ever to go to zero.
No, thank you very much for that update. There's no recommendations, it's just a verbal update. Item 7, external audit process. This is another verbal update. Please ask John Chance to present the report.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Chair. It's a verbal update, this one, yes. I'm hoping. Yeah. Okay, so we are in the position of having a number of years of external audit reports not yet completely signed off, and I think as we were last time, we were talking about where BDO had left off. So there's the year 2021, 21-22, and 22-23, which is still BDO's remit before our colleagues at Ernst & Young take over the audits thenceforth. So the situation remains the same. Dawn and I had a catch-up with BDO, and that they are still waiting for the outcome of the objection relating to the year 2021, and that's holding up the final sign-off of the accounts, although they are more than likely to be disclaimed across those 3 years for those underlying reasons about the objection, and we're still going through the legal process to wrap all of that up. So that's still not completely dealt with, and that actually does inhibit Ernst & Young's entrance and appraisal of the 23-24 accounts, and probably the 24-25 as well, because of the deep-rooted issue that we go back to with BDO and the legacy years, is what we begin to call them now, because they've been around for some time. So we're not really any further forward, and we've still got to let due course take its process in terms of the legal issue with regard to that objection that we talked about in a little bit more detail last time, to alert councillors, members of the committee, a bit more about the backdrop and how we've got into this position. So that's kind of like where we are. And a disclaimer to the accounts means that they're not offering an opinion overall. So it's not an ideal position to be in, but we understand why the auditors are in that position, and we have to just wait for all those eventualities to take their course, and then we'll be in a position where we can begin on an even keel and start to have more meaningful opinions given by the external auditors in the fullness of time. So that's a sort of very quick sort of thumbnails to about where we are, and I'm conscious that we're not really much further forward than we were last time.
Can I just come in there, Chair, because I think it might be quite helpful. As John says, we've met with BDO just to get some timeline for us, and if the as John says, we are seeking some legal advice in terms of the objection. We are in the process of doing that. If that legal advice doesn't prove anything, everything's okay on that legal advice, it's still likely to until the end of the year, until the BDO process is concluded. So the best case scenario, and the Finance Commission and I also met with BDO this morning. So the best scenario is that we will have the process concluded by the end of this year, because once there's quite a process to go through, that something has to be written, then we have to go back to the objector and give them certain times to respond to that. It has to go to the PSAA, so there's sort of a process that has to happen. Worst case scenario, it could be about March. So that's just to give you some timelines of when we can formally conclude with BDO, and then obviously our colleagues at EY can take over. But I think just to add as well, just to give you some assurance, I mean, the reason why that we want the 24-25 accounts, which obviously you're going to look at tonight, and we're sort of detailing the additional checks and everything have been done to those sets of accounts. It's really important for us that they then go off to our colleagues at EY and sort of do as normal an audit as possible, so we can start to get some, get into what would management actions be, what are they happy with, is there any areas of concern, so that we can start to build on that and try to get back into that normal process where we do a set of accounts, it gets checked, and then we get the comments back.
No, thank you, John and Dawn. That's really helpful. I was going to ask about timing, so you've headed that one off. Say the stars align and the end of December we're done and we're ready to go. How quickly then can we put the other years after that, file them and have them audited correctly? That will be
the conclusion of all the old sets of accounts, because the reason that they're all being held up is essentially for the same reason. So once that reason is concluded, then they can all be completed. We can finish it with BDO, and then our colleagues at EY, who are already doing some work, are doing as much audit work as they can. There can be the formal handover, and then we move over fully to EY.
Shall I just come in briefly? So that was a really helpful update. I think a couple of points I'd just reiterate, and we did talk about this or colleagues of mine did at the last committee, but I think it's worth just reiterating. So as Dawn said, we take over from 23-24 onwards. We are trying to do sensible work in terms of getting to know the organisation. We're having regular meetings with management, with the monitoring officer, trying to understand the detail around the objection and value for money, which will always be an area we have to report fully on. So I think that's important to note that our obligations around value for money don't change, nor do BDOs for those legacy audits. So they will have to report out fully around value for money, and whether it's 23-24, 24-25 or beyond, we will have to give you a fulsome report around value for money. So if you think about our requirements almost being split into two halves, part of it's the financial statements audit, the other half is our reporting around value for money. So the legal obligations around value for money don't change, and you will get a full report on that in time. I think the reason we can't give you that today, for example, on 23-24, is we don't know until the conclusion of those historic matters what knock-on impact those conclusions might have on 23-24 or 24-25. So it becomes a bit of a sort of unfortunate self-fulfilling sort of prophecy. So we're trying to work with management to understand that first piece around when will BDO conclude their piece of this, so that we got a sort of full picture of historic stuff, any impact on current and future stuff, so we can do the value for money piece. I think it's fair to say the financial statements part of it, if you think about 23-24, you remember the government introduced backstop dates on previous and historic audits. So the 23-24 backstop date has already been and gone in February. So for a pure 23-24 audit, we will be forced to move to a disclaimer of opinion for 23-24 on the financial statements because the backstop date has happened. We will, as I say, report value for money. 24-25, the backstop date for that set of accounts that you're looking at tonight is end of February 26. So if you think about the BDO piece and the timeline that we've just talked about, and you think about all of the other reasons why backstop dates were brought in the first place in terms of pressure across the sector, that's already squeezing substantially what's achievable in 24-25. So I just want to make sure we're setting expectations. We will do what we can, but those limitations are fairly inhibitive for us to be able to do a fulsome audit. There will be some procedures we can do on the financial statements bit, but it will be fairly base level. The value for money will be fulsome, but it's almost starting to manage expectations for sort of a fuller set of procedures is probably already looking like the next financial year. And even then, the knock-on impacts of historic opinions not being clean will have a sort of infective impact on that. So it is complicated, I do get that, and I know we've tried to give an overview of that in the report at the last committee, but I just sort of urge almost we have to take it one step at a time, and the key barrier at the moment is that historic reporting that we just need to see the answer on because it infects things in so many different ways, and we can't compliantly move forward without that answer. So that's where we're having sort of hopefully sensible and collaborative conversations around how quickly can that move given the complexity of it, and when will we see as external auditors sort of outputs from that so that we can make an informed decision around what's next and set timelines to this committee that feel a bit more credible.
That's an honest assessment. Thank you very much. It's hard. If you don't know, you don't know. See, and we lots of unknowns. Yes.
Just so I understand that correctly, are we effectively saying 24-25 will be a disclaimer opinion as well? And in most likeliness, next year could potentially be one, depending on the findings.
So I think it's fair to say that 24-25 would have to be a disclaimer. Now the question is, and you know, the powers that be, so MHCLG, FRC, who have published the sort of detail around why there are disclaimers. So I'd almost see disclaimers in two halves. You can have a disclaimer because the prior period was disclaimed and therefore you've got an issue around your brought forward figures. But alongside that, you could complete a relatively normal audit. So a normal set of procedures that says, we've done all of this work, I present it to you in a report. However, because of this historic thing around the brought forward position, it still has to be called a disclaimer. So that would be the ideal. Now, obviously, we sit here tonight and we're only seeing accounts tonight, and we've got these other issues that mean we have to focus on, as I say, the value for money bit, because that's an important bit of reporting that we have to do, and we have to take into account those historic issues. But to answer your question really simply, 24-25 will have to be a disclaimer. How much we say we have done alongside that technical conclusion is still a little bit up for grabs. But I think given the timeline we're looking at, and given the timeline we've just talked around possibly end of the year and worst case scenario March, and a backstop date of February 26, I think it's just wanting to manage expectations that the volume of audit procedures we're going to be able to do on 24-25 I think is going to be pretty limited. So I would still see 24-25 as, given the complexity here, looking like a fairly fulsome disclaimer. I'd really hope that 25-26, even if we've got a real kind of technical point around, well, it's a disclaimer because your brought forward position is tricky and you've not got historic assurance, I'd love to be able to kind of bring to you a whole set of procedures that we have done in a relatively normal audit year, and the reason it's the disclaimer is more technical than it is substantive, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Just on that side of things, and is there a cost saving to the council for having a disclaimed versus a non-disclaimed opinion? Do we save any money?
Well, so the base level of procedures that we do, and the sort of base cost for the audit is set with the council through the PSAA, so the Public Sector Audit Appointments Body, and that base level assumes a full audit, right? So what we then have to do is go and almost report to you and also to the PSAA, well, we didn't do that full set of audit procedures because of all of these complexities. However, we did do these other things, and we did meet with management, and we did do a fulsome value for money report, which was quite complicated. So I wouldn't want to sort of say now exactly what those numbers spit out, because we've got to carry on doing the work with you, and we've got to see how much we can do. But the thing that has been scoped in the base fee won't be the thing that we end up doing in this year. So there'll have to be a process that gets worked through where that fee is properly checked and mediated, and the PSAA are there for that very reason, to kind of make sure that we're only charging for work that we've done. So I wouldn't know yet exactly what the fee will end up being, because we're still in the sort of heat of it, but the scope of what we do will be quite different to what's in that base fee. So I'd ask that question again as we develop through the course of the period.
Any other, Councillor Arnold?
Yeah, I think before the meeting started, we were having a conversation with Satinder, and he explained very well, because as you know, I don't necessarily feel that reassured, and to me, you've got an objection that I assume is around the figures within the finances, and if that figure changes, what knock-on effect that would have, and so how can I feel reassured if we're having disclaimer after disclaimer after disclaimer? So I don't know whether Satinder could maybe re-explain that, because I think for residents and public that are listening, I think it was explained very well to make me feel better reassured, but I don't know that I could necessarily portray that myself.
Happy to. So I think to provide the assurance, we mentioned that yes, your external auditors will provide you with a level of assurance, and I appreciate that by having a disclaimer you feel nervous of the accuracy of the figures. However, as your external auditors have now mentioned, yes, you might have a disclaimer, but might be at the base of that might be, well, actually it's because your opening figures they don't have the assurance over, and as the years do go by and they are able to do more audit procedures, they will be able to move away from that disclaimer and provide you with the assurance on the figures that have moved from the opening balances to the closing balances, so you have a full, hopefully unqualified opinion. So I believe your external auditors are saying that yes, you're at a tricky point and a challenge point where there will be a disclaimer, but the process is being worked on so that you will, which might take a couple of years to get to the point where you have that unqualified opinion.
Just on that, obviously the government's moving at pace for all different ideas of how ethics will look in terms of authorities. It sounds like that might be quicker than than us getting fully non-disclaimed audits. That'd be a fair assumption.
I think the vesting day, isn't it, or when we start in our new arrangement, is the 1st of April 28. So I would hope that by then we do start to get into more a routine external audit process, because that's really important for us as well, because when we do our statement of accounts, is it a true and fair view, and it's really important that we can get into that process with our external auditors to get validation that it is a true and fair view, or we would like to discuss the following issues with you. And it's really important for the council, as we go through our transformation roadmap, that we understand, we get some assurance on, or telling us areas of value for money. So with a fair wind, fingers crossed, but it is quite tricky, but with a fair wind we should hopefully be reasonably there by.
And just going back to the objection, when was it first raised, this objection? Was it in 21?
It was raised in relation to the 2021 accounts.
Yes.
So it was raised in 2021, the actual objection itself?
It was raised on the 2021 accounts. I'm not 100% sure the date, I can come back to you, but it was definitely raised on that set of accounts.
No, so we're just trying to see, nearly 4 years down the line before we might have it come to a conclusion. It seems like a long time. Lots of legal back and forth, I suspect. But any other comments or questions on this item? Councillor Arnold?
Just one really, I know agenda item 5's been taken off. Given that the services themselves are providing you with their figures, how reassured are you that each service's figures are accurate? Or just because we've seen that processes aren't always being followed, how reassured are you that the figures you're being supplied by the services, other services of the council, are accurate?
So, in terms of the numbers, in terms of the numbers that we get from services, do you mean in terms of sort of forecasting and such? Because the numbers that we get from the services are predominantly what we use for forecasting, when we do our financial forecasting, and obviously we've got the outturn report is coming to cabinet tomorrow night. So we've got the numbers that come in through that forecasting mechanism, which is done in conjunction with the finance team. So they are as accurate as we can get them. We do know there's been some challenges, sorry, is not the right word, but there have been some things that have changed between quarter 3 to quarter 4 on the outturn position to the benefit of the council. I think in terms of a lot of the numbers that are produced in this statement of accounts, in terms of what goes to our external auditors, the majority of that comes from, it's the sort of corporate and technical team, isn't it? Yeah. Because that's a lot of it is the technical adjustments. Things that do impact on the accounts, things like accruals and such, they do come from the service finance teams, but they are done very much with the finance team. So they are I would say they're as accurate as we try to get them. But I think this is why we're very keen. Obviously, it's in our best interest that we do try and get back into this normal external audit process, because we've done a set of accounts for 24-25. We took an extra month to do a significant number of checks on those accounts. So we think that they are the best set of accounts that we can get them. We really do need our external auditors' validation to make sure that we have done them correctly and it's a true and fair view. And so the quicker we get that, the better.
Any other comments or questions from the committee? Yeah, Councillor Panchala.
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity. I'm sitting as a Vice Chair for this Audit Committee from second year now. So we are hearing from every time historical open issues are pending, and we are not getting any conclusion for that. What are the challenges we are having that officers to when can we able to get the conclusion date so that estimated it will be good for the residents of the Thurrock. Thank you.
I think this objection has been a very challenging. It's been a very challenging process. It is linked in with other processes that are going on in the council, and we have to be very mindful that we don't do something in terms of the legal advice, the objective that perhaps compromises something else, and that has very much been communications with both BDO and our current audit colleagues. And so what we are saying is that if the objection is concluded that there was no fault found, then the best case scenario is the process will be concluded at the end of the year. So best case is at the end of this year. Worst case could be potentially March next year. So those are the timelines that we're working to.
Thank you for the clarification. Thank you.
And have we got any cost of what it's cost the council in terms of legal fees working on this objection?
We do have the cost, the estimated cost from BDO to conclude their work. So we have that, and that's provided for within the accounts. And then our new audit fees are, as colleagues have agreed, through the PSAA.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? Yeah.
Just following on for that question, but does that cover the legal fees?
Oh no, sorry. So the legal fees for the objection is relatively light. So it's relatively light, and that we are funding that from the provision for legal fees against our whole litigation process in our accounts.
Thank you.
Sorry, I answered that wrong. Sorry.
No, thank you for having that clarified it really well. Thank you. Any other comments or questions on this item? Yeah, no. Brilliant. Thank you very much for that, for the update. Item 8, draft unaudited statement of accounts 2024-2025. Can I please ask John Chance to present this item?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, happy to do so. Okay, so we've got a full report here covering nigh on 120 pages of the accounts, preceded by a summary of a review process that Dawn alluded to earlier. We felt that we needed to do our own internal review to double check a number of things. There were 10 aspects of it. They're all listed in the report, and apart from a little bit of follow-up work, which I've indicated in the report, the review was highly successful. On our own work, doing our own checks and balances, and sort of swapping roles in terms of using senior finance colleagues to challenge certain aspects of it. So it's all gone well, and I therefore present here a set of accounts, and I'll give you a brief sort of synopsis about how they fit together. There's 4 core statements, they being the comprehensive income and expenditure, the movement in reserve statement, the balance sheet, and a cash flow statement. So those 4 statements comprise the main accounts, and of course there's a number of peripheral statements, and some of them are specialist in nature that accompany those, such as housing revenue account and collection funds have got their own area of the accounts that we report separately. And then there's some specific aspects. Major issues around property, place and equipment, valuations are all plugged into these accounts. The impact of the valuations on the balance sheet, gains and losses, all those sorts of things, acquisitions, disposals, impairments, all those sorts of things are all captured within the accounts. So it's kind of like covers every aspect of it. Page 75 of the narrative report gives you a bit more detail on those main statements, and I would urge members to have a look at that at some point. I would say that the lady to my left, Poonam, is very technical, and she's helped prepare the accounts. We could do a bespoke session if necessary. I'll just leave that with members to think about in case you need a little bit more detail on how these accounts all stack up, because I'm not expecting you to have read all 118 pages and come up with umpteen questions, some of which we may say we'll get back to you later, because of it's figure work, a lot of it. So I'm just giving you a sort of thumbnail. So that's where we are with the accounts. We were very happy with the success of the internal review. It was worth doing that, and missing the original deadline from HMRC of the 30th of June. Dawn and I were having a chat one afternoon, and we decided it would be a good idea, because there were some unanswered questions because of the churn basically of staff. And I think, Dawn, you've had 3 chief accountants in a year, so I'm here now for 7 months or something, so getting used to things, and have been very confident with pulling these accounts together with Poonam's efforts, and indeed the team itself in corporate finance. So we're encouraged by where we are. There's a couple of bits around grants with gathering evidence. There's a couple of queries with our valuers over magnitude of the changes of certain assets. And there's a little bit on business rate cash that we've got to crack as well. But they do not hold anything up. They do not have any material impact on the nature of these accounts in draft, and we advocate that we move forward with audit with those. A couple of other bits, a bit of related party information. We ask all members to complete their declaration of interest in other organisations that liaise with or contractually liaise with Thurrock. We're nearly there. We've got 19 left out of 49, and there's been 3 declarations not covered in this report, so the report will be tweaked before we publish later this month. I'll come to that in a moment. And group accounts are not covered here because they've sold assets within the group, and they may not be material. And actually, we've had a long-term sick on the group side, on the subsidiary side, and we're waiting for the accounts to be produced. So there's a little bit of a delay, but we don't feel again that that's going to hold up or impact anything. And finally, the annual governance statement normally goes hand in hand with the statement of accounts, and I'll have been presenting that as well. There's some delays with the annual governance statement. There's still being some work done on that, and that's about how the authority governs all the arrangements and action plans to correct issues and so forth. I think there's another extraordinary meeting on the 11th of August when that will be presented. Thereafter, the 2 documents can be published formally and finally, subject to your approval, Chair. And then we enter the period of public inspection, which is 30 days, statutory stuff that we must do. And if anybody asks questions of the accounts, we will do our best to address those and so forth. So that's where we are. There's obviously quite a lot in this, and I'm very encouraged by how it's all knitted together. We've got a really good, I don't want to get too technical, Excel spreadsheet that takes 10,000 lines of trial balance and slots them into the core statements that I've described, slots them into various notes, and produces the accounts, and they do add up, they do stack up. We've done all those verifications internally, and it's a really good tick on that one. And that was one of the reviews that we do. That's your real asset test. If your accounts are produced automatically by your spreadsheet, bang. Goodness knows how they used to do this with quill and pen a few years ago, but that's slightly before my time. But I can commend the accounts, a really good set of accounts, and hence it would be great if we were in the position to have a more robust audit opinion. But we understand from Ben at EY why we haven't got that at the moment, but we look forward to that in the future, because in my sort of role, you want to get a healthy set of accounts. That's your goal in the role, is to do that. And as Dawn as 151, that's a massive tick as well. So we look for that in the future, but for now we go ahead with these accounts. And we're happy to answer any questions. If they're really technical, we'll come back to you, but wanted you to have the opportunity to ask anything of us tonight. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm really pleased to see these. A little bit disappointed the AGS is not quite ready, but we're going to work around that and bring it back as quickly as we can to a future meeting. But I'm sure there's going to be lots of questions. Councillor Raper's got a bit of a list there as well. Open up to questions from the floor.
Thank you for this. It was I did read all of it, and it was very helpful, because obviously I'm not an expert in the area, so it was very, very clearly put and so on. So thank you for that. I've got dozens of questions, but one I'm going to ask now. Could you just tell me what's the difference between a quoted and unquoted security? It's just because I didn't understand the difference.
That's a good question. A quoted and unquoted security.
Page 89 at the
Okay.
bottom. It's to do with the Essex Pension Fund, who've got my pension.
Okay, right. If it's to do with the pension fund, that's managed by Essex and through an actuary. So it might be better for us to get some proper advice from them on that, because it's not directly us, you see.
Thank you. I just wanted a definition, but
Okay.
I can probably Google it. So
Yeah,
could you?
okay. Well, we'd be happy.
Thank you.
Sorry, quoted securities are the ones that you can exchange on any exchange, like the London Stock Exchange or something. Unquoted, you cannot. That's the simplistic.
Thank you. That's helpful. I'll make a note of that.
You touched on the group boundaries on group companies of so like Thurrock Regeneration Limited, and what will happen around those, the finances that goes with those organisations.
Okay, there was some assets that were sold off during 23-24 that were valued in the millions, and therefore the 24-25 there was very little activity at all, just a few expenses and things. So we were thinking, and as I say, there's been somebody off long-term sick, so we haven't had the final accounts yet. We're thinking that there may not be material enough to worth consolidation. We'd ask our auditors about that, what the threshold is, what sort of percentage terms would you then consolidate accounts. But we think the assets have dropped so much that they may not warrant consolidation, and that's the bit that we're still looking at and working on, and we will have knowledge not too long. I need to work with the team in the regeneration area to get those final figures for the financial year. Either that, or we may even move resource in ourselves. We've done that before to get the 23-24 accounts out the door early this year, so we might need to do that. So it's a complicated one, but we don't want it to hold things up for what we call the single entity, which is Thurrock Council.
That makes sense. Thank you for that. It's just obviously a lot might be historical now if the assets have been sold and things like that. It's just where it fits in the process. It was nice to thank you for that. Councillor Raper.
Yeah, sorry, I've got, as you can see, I got a bit carried away. On page 73, this is just for information. I think you're going to need to update your political makeup of the council since this was written. And also, much further on, it doesn't really matter which page, occasionally the headings don't match the table. They're just sort of slightly out of position. And reading through it, it just makes it a little bit difficult if you're not au fait with everything. Thank you.
We will tidy things up for sure, before the final publication.
Just on the political makeup, is that time with the start of the financial year? The financial year started in May, and that's why we took a snapshot of that at that point. Yeah.
Oh, so that's it.
That'd be
you don't need that.
because we're just to the 31st of March 2025 here. Yeah.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Any comments or questions on the set of accounts? I think there was, we were just chatting beforehand, a slight correction on page 101 regarding the historic forts in the borough.
Yeah, the heritage assets, yes.
Yep, so he's got Coal House Fort at Tilbury is open to the public. Tilbury Fort in Tilbury is open to the public, but Coal House Fort in East Tilbury is not currently open to the public. So it might need to change that around.
Indeed, yeah. Councillor Morris Cook has given me the information about that, and I'm getting it sorted. Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. And then I noticed you touched on it as well. So declarations, members' declarations. I think in here somewhere it's 28 hadn't been returned at the time of publication of this. So that's come down now, is it, since this?
Yes, it's as of today, it's 19 missing. So I would urge anyone that hasn't done it to do so, because it may just be a question of saying you don't have any interests. But of course, we must ask the question, and we must have a documentation of that question in every time. There are 3 declared, so they will go into this report as well. So that we're beginning to have a number of changes, but they're not going to be on the finances.
Thank you for that. And something that was quite interesting around like the artefacts at Gray's Museum and the valuations and things like that. I mean, I suppose a lot of that is probably not for you to answer as such, but insurance reasons, I guess, would that be why they'd be valued?
I would imagine so, Chair. Yes, I would think so. And valuations are done frequently, so they would get reviewed each year. Yeah.
And if you were to be doing accounts for Thurrock next year, what do you think you've learned from doing this particular set that would help you?
Well, we've got a very strong and robust model, as I already waxed lyrical about. That is extremely encouraging because it does mean that you get your trial balance and you place it in the model and the accounts are produced and you do your checks and balances around it. So we've got some really good experience in the team and we need to build upon that. And one of the things we've been talking about is actually disseminating the knowledge of this particular individual so that we can be stronger for the future. Because Poonam's an interim member of staff, she won't be here forever, and we're trying to fill the job permanently and finally, and then of course we can begin to share some of the knowledge of the individual that's been managing the model and built it over the years. So that's a positive, definitely, and I think we need a bit more cognizance about how the subsidiaries work. But like I say, it may be academic if it's below a materiality threshold.
There is a lot to take in, and I know we've all had a look at it. And when in terms of these are draft, unaudited, how much can we really expect to change between draft and final sort of version?
It's a very good question, Chair. EY are with us, but obviously they've got to run the rule over it. They'll take the final model, they'll do their checks and balances on it, and they will have a whole program of things that they'll be looking at. So they will ask us for various evidences, and we're preempting that, and we're gathering things together already in preparation for October, when I think when you do the main hands-on audit and all the sampling. So I couldn't possibly say what they'll find, but we feel, with the checks and balances we've done and the adherence to the model, to the code of practice, to the checklists that we've done and our own checks and balances internally, we feel they're robust. Obviously, Ernst & Young will reserve the right to run the rule over it and do whatever analysis they see fit, and then they'll form their opinion thereafter.
Yeah, I think we sort of get back to some sort of normality for the authority when it comes to audit. I think that'll be a really welcome place. Any other comments or questions, Councillor Arnold?
Comment really to clarify. We're draft agreeing the draft, and we'll be seeing something on the 11th of August, the actual report. Yeah, you're shaking your head.
On the 11th of April, what you will see is the annual governance statement, the draft annual governance statement, because under normal circumstances you would have received the accounts and the AGS tonight, because they have to be published for public inspection together. So what you will see is, but the AGS has been subject again just to another due diligence check, just to make sure that that we've done it to the best of our abilities and it covers everything that document should do. That will come to you on the 11th, and then once you're happy with that, then, and that before it comes to you, that goes through a process. It's currently with Dan and myself as statutory officers to approve. It gets approved by the chief exec and then the leader. That will then come to you, and then once that's come to you, then both the statement of accounts and the AGS, that comes to you on the 11th of August, and then both documents are published for public inspection.
Just around that process, so one they go on the website and where else or anywhere else they go.
We open for public inspection, so there's a 30 working day period where we wait to see what questions are asked, if any, as a statutory responsibility to do, statutory obligation.
And do you have to have a physical copy if a member of the public was to come and want to inspect the book, so to speak?
I would think so, actually, Chair. I would think that would be the sensible thing to do, yeah. Obviously, these days people have got, they click on links and things, but it may be that somebody wants a physical copy, print one off, yeah.
No, not everyone's obviously connected up, and sometimes pen and paper are the ways that people get information. Yes.
So just with the final version, would that be sense checked to make sure like fonts all match? Because I've noticed some statements had slightly different font sizes.
I think so, Councillor, definitely. Given the what I've heard, and obviously we did get to the point where we had to say, right, we've done as much checks as we can. We're very happy with the figures. To be fair, the last minute we're doing things around fonts and what have you, so we will do a bit more work on that, given we have the time.
Yeah, I think there's a couple on. I think they're probably snippets being put in. Page 146 probably isn't.
We'll make a note of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I noticed that actually. It's just the font's a bit, looks like it's not quite aligned, and got like a bit of shading to it. But yeah.
And has EY reviewed the accounting policies to make sure they're up to date and they cover everything within the financial statements?
I come in. It might be worth just giving a bit of an overview more broadly around what happens now we've got this draft set of accounts. So what we tend to see at this point is there's a draft set of accounts come to committee. Any sort of comments around sort of fonts, typos, as well as some of the points that John raised earlier, which are a little bit more substantive. What's the answer around the group, for example, and subsidiaries, and what you're going to say around that? I would sort of encourage that there's a sort of offline process where you all share that, and John and Poonam and Dawn have got the ability to kind of work that through, because if you're not publishing until the 11th, why wouldn't you take those comments in? So there's that process. You've got the AGS, and to be a compliant published set of accounts and AGS, they both have to be published together. So that's going to be a couple of days after the 11th, I'm presuming. And then the inspection period has to happen. So there's that sort of, that's within the council process, which will happen over the course of the next month or so. What we can now do, now we've got a set of accounts that's been through committee, John has presented the paper alongside it that says we've kicked the tyres pretty hard on this, and apart from a couple of bits and pieces, we're comfortable as a management team. That's the sort of statement that we've been waiting to hear, right? We didn't want to go in and see a draft a month ago because we needed that assurance that management were comfortable with it. Now we've got that, we can start a couple of what I'd call higher level processes. So we can do what we call a kind of casting check. Do the things add up? Do they make sense? Are they internally consistent? We do a thing called a disclosure checklist. So that says, is it a complete set of accounts? Are all the required disclosures per the code in here? So what we'll do now is those kind of relatively high level procedures over the course of the next month. When we get the AGS, and that's been through the right governance process, we'll do sensible checks on that. Accounting policies is another area, Councillor, where we'll do a sort of relatively sort of sensible check on it. What I do just need to make clear though is we've got other things that we need to do on this audit in a priority order. So I've still got a 23-24 audit open. It's linked to the historic issues we've talked about already, but I've still got to report to you on whether there's value for money in that audit period. So I've also got to think, Councillor and Councillors, around the priority order at which I do things in, a backstop date of February, and a sector which is challenged in lots of ways in terms of resource and what's going on with a whole client base here, right? So I think I just have to be clear there will be certain procedures that we do now we've got this statement from management, but in terms of how much we can do beyond that, that is still a little bit of a conversation that we're having, and step one of do those high level procedures tell me what I need to know, or do they raise lots more questions, will guide step two around, okay, so in October we can do X, Y and Z. And as I say, the priority around making sure we can close down value for money so that you get a sort of fulsome report from us on that piece, which is qualitatively incredibly important given some of the historic points here, just have to be taken into this model. So prioritising how we use our resources is quite important. We'll keep speaking to management on this, and I'd recommend that we sort of keep updating this committee at every opportunity with what next. But you know, I think the management have been really open around this set of accounts is coming to you tonight, but there was a deadline a month ago where most organisations were able to publish. So I think just that context, I understand why that's the case, but that context is important to sort of recognise given the overall sector that we're working in here. We will do what we can, but there are some challenges around it, and I want to get to those base level procedures sooner rather than later. Now we've got those statements from management, because that'll tell us at least a level of information that will be helpful to report back to you.
Councillor Pedella.
Thank you, Chair. I have one question, just doubt. I want to clarification about the page number 147 regarding the 2024-25 statement of accounts. We can see the short-term financial liabilities is gone down compared to 2024 and 2025, whereas long-term liabilities is increased compared to 2024 and 2025. So, are we not recovering any amounts for the long-term? Page number 147, statement of accounts.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, we did. We have looked at some of the high-level changes, and on the one hand, there's been some impairments of some of the investments, and on the other hand, there's less cash in the system because of loans being repaid. So it's probably to do with that. But I think we'd probably want to get you a more robust answer, and talk about specific assets. Poonam's got some comment.
So the long-term liabilities, what you are seeing now, the main change is IFRS 16 lease. So as you can see, last year it was 198 million, this year is 201 million. The big change between those two numbers are actually IFRS 16 lease, which were some of the leases which were considered as an operating lease, but they become finance leases now as a change of effect, now the change in standards. So they are not sitting as an expenditure now, but you have to bring them on the balance sheet as a liability. So that's the big change you're seeing. If you see the number there is about 2.8 million, finance leases IFRS 16. That's the big change which you are seeing in long-term liabilities at the moment.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification. Chair.
Any other comments or questions on set of accounts? There is some set recommendations. So just before we move to the last chance, anyone wants to make any comment or question on this? No. Councillor Arnold.
Can I just ask you about 2.2, to authorise the chair of the committee to sign the final unaudited statement being required by the auditors? Are you... It's on. It's on. Are you kind of happy to do that with no input if there is changes made between the draft and the final statement, without any input from
the committee?
From the committee. That was my question on that.
The way I read it is, as a committee, you're delegating me as the chair to be able to sign on behalf of the committee.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm asking you if you're happy for that.
I am.
Without us having any other input with you.
I am, but if there was anything material, I think we could communicate with the committee and make any changes.
Okay.
So that's sound of a round robin. So, be a good suggestion. Yep. Councillor Raper.
Thank you. On that point, is there a timescale for when Councillor Massey might be asked to approve the final version? Is it going to be after the 11th of August, or?
I think it can be on that date. We could get these changes done relatively quickly. They're superficial changes, really, aren't they? And we can get those done, and we can send the accounts to the chair, and in readiness we can then say on the 11th of August that that bit's done, and the AGS, if everybody's happy, can be signed off too. So I think before we could get on with that. It's just because of the superficial nature of some of these changes we've been talking about, we can get that done relatively quickly.
Thank you.
And we can circulate that with the group, can't we? So everyone can see the changes, make sure everyone's happy. No problem. We'll have obviously a chance then to discuss it on the 11th anyway. So.
And we'll make sure as well, Chair, that you get a log of the changes, so it's easy for you to see what was in the old one and where we've changed, so it's very clear for you.
Perfect. Sounds good to me. Brilliant. Yeah. Any other comments or questions before we go to recommendations? No. So, recommendation 2.1, to approve the final draft unaudited statement of accounts 2024/2025, subject to any material changes being required by the auditors, Appendix 2. Are we all agreed? Any to the contrary? No?
Are we still quorum?
Recommendation 2.2, to authorise the chair of the committee to sign the final unaudited statement of accounts 2024/2025, subject to any material changes being required by the auditors. Were we all agreed? To the contrary? 2.3, to note the auditors Ernst & Young will commence the detailed field audit in the autumn and have already indicated they are likely to issue a disclaimer option based on the status of the older year audits which remain outstanding at present. Is this recommendation agreed?
Agreed.
To the contrary? Thank you, members. Moving on to the last item, the work programme found on page 189. Is there anyone who would like to make any comment on the work programme?
Chair, can I just add that the 11th of August extraordinary meeting is not on the work programme as yet, but obviously I'm sure you'll speak to that we'll be including it.
Yes, so the 11th of August we're going to have an extraordinary meeting again for this committee, and that was where we will be having the AGS, annual governance status, with a view that immediately after we'll be able to sign the accounts. Anything else anyone would like to discuss about the work programme other than the extra date?
Just noting, Councillor Massey, that item 5 will also be, from today, will be deferred to the 11th of August as well.
Yep. Yep, that will be on the next meeting.
Can I just add that if meetings are called on a Monday, there will always be a clash with group meetings.
Yeah, I think there's always a clash with everything, one way or another. It's really tricky, but we will keep a conversation going and see if we can improve it for members.
Thank you.
Brilliant. With that, the time is 4 minutes past 7 p.m, and I'd like to close the meeting. Thank you very much, everyone.